morning, everyone. Thank you for making it here on time. We have some of our participants joining us online. We have some partners on this project who are also coming, who are joining us online, and that's why you can hear a bit of noise on that side. They're trying to find out if we started or not. So my name is Wanne. I am the programs coordinator on the African Youth Project for Emerging Communities Africa. We've partnered with NINE in getting this policy roundtable happen here in Abuja today. Just before we start, I'd like to give us some housekeeping rules. If at any point you're tired, you need to stretch, please feel free to stand up and go to the back. We have tea, coffee available for all.
African EU Project is a project that is focused on, establishment of the first transcontinental networking academy between digital innovation hubs, key players in the digital innovation ecosystem in African continent and in the EU. I will not be the one to present the project. My colleague from Tanzania is going to present the project virtually. But then, what is important is that there are 11 partners on the project and 4 African countries. The African countries are Nigeria, Tanzania, Uganda, and Ghana. So before I delve into African Union, again, my name is Peace Odili, and I'm the ED at Emerging Communities Africa. Emerging Communities Africa, sorry, please my slides. Emerging Communities Africa is a non-profit focused on catalyzing technology development to solve social and entrepreneurship challenges in underserved communities across various sectors, health, education, security, and the rest of them. We've been in operation since 2017, and from then till now, our programs have been focused around bridging the gender gap between male and female in the tech ecosystem, ensuring that we provide incubation, acceleration, networking and mentoring opportunities for startups, tech talent. And one major feat that we've had so far is the establishment of the Akure Tech Hub. Yes, ECA is based in Akure in Ondo State. So we've established the Akure Tech Hub, which is like the first trapdoor hub in Nigeria. And it's a replica of the triple helix model that is having academia, private sector, and government. The hub is domiciled in the Federal University of Technology in Akure, and academia is FUTA, government is Ondo State government, represented by the State Information Technology Agency, and then private sector, being Emerging Communities Africa. We've been able to impact tech talents, SMEs, startups from inception till now, and we've been able to reach over 13,000 people directly and indirectly. So, we are on the African EU project and we're representing Nigeria. Now, the purpose of this policy roundtable is to be able to first have an overview of what we've done since the project started in 2021, to have an idea of what we've done so far, what we intend to do, but most importantly, to be able to have like a brief of overview of what we need as policy makers, stakeholders in the digital innovation ecosystem. Again, it is important that you know that the presentation today is focused on the 4 African countries. So we're just going to, there's been a little bit of research that has happened, right? And I'm just going to give you a brief of that report that we've had based on the research, and that will form the basis for our conversations today. And to be able to ensure the accuracy of the recommendations and the reports, it was important that we had conversations with key players in the digital innovation ecosystem across the 4 countries. And what we were able to identify were 3 major things. First of all, there was a broad ICT framework that exists in each of these countries. And the policy that we have, that they have, we all have, right, have gaps. And these gaps are the things that we need to be able to focus on. And at the same time, as much as there were gaps that hindered the adoption, we also had very nice policies, but with stringent government regulations, still hindering the adoption as well. And because of this, we now had to use a particular methodology to ensure that this research was done. And the four major themes that we focused the research on was the overview of the African digital innovation ecosystem. I already said that. The project began in 2021, and we needed to ensure that the impact of COVID-19, because we started in February 2021, and we just came out of COVID. So we needed to understand how the effect of COVID on the digital innovation ecosystem. And then we also needed to be able to identify the challenges and opportunities to strengthen, because it's enough to understand the overview. It's enough to be able to identify the gaps and the impact. Now the next thing to do is to be able to identify what are the opportunities that we need to use to strengthen what we found out. And then eventually, these are the things that are supposed to come up together to become recommendations for the African EU project. Again, Ghana, Nigeria, Uganda, and Tanzania. And the methodology was desk-based research. We had 60 interviews. We interviewed government stakeholders. We interviewed digital innovation hub managers and founders. We interviewed persons in academia, under the tech talents. And then we also had 4 roundtables in each of these African countries where we invited the key players in the digital innovation ecosystem. And then there were 2 surveys that we got over 300 respondents from. Now, again, the research was majored on markets, policy, finance, infrastructure and supports, culture and human capital. And then for the markets, we realized that the major thing that was hindering was, the fact that we had, ICT sector contribution, we had the gaps between men and women, especially in rural areas. And looking at the ICT sector contribution, Nigeria had 18%, Uganda had 10.5%, and then for the internet penetration, Tanzania had 55% and Ghana had 45%. But under policy, just like I said before initially, there's that broad ICT framework, but there's the issue of adoption, and then realize that COVID-19 forced governments to be able to ensure that they place greater emphasis on digital innovation. For the human capital, digital skills were very important. At least that was something that we realized. And these are the things that helped us to be able to form the different webinars, the different master classes that we've had on the project. Just like I said, a colleague of mine is going to present the African EU project for you to have a broad overview of what the project is about. And then for infrastructure and support, there were a number of hubs. And again, Nigeria took the lead of the number of hubs that are currently running with over 90. And we realized that the major challenge for hubs were funding. Every hub needs funding to be able to continue, to be able to ensure that they're sustained. And at the end of the day, we realized that mobile operators have invested over $52 billion in infrastructure between 2019 and now. And then for culture, one thing that cut across all was that culture of entrepreneurship. It was a case where everyone knew that to be able to solve the problem of unemployment, entrepreneurship was key. And we realized that in Ghana, Ghana women were underrepresented in the digital innovation space. And then Nigeria, 82% considered entrepreneurship to be really good. For finance, investment, fintech is where everyone wants to invest in. And in 2020, we realized that the total venture capital investment, Nigeria again taking the lead with $307 million. And the best funded sectors in Ghana, it's e-health, in Tanzania, agri-tech, and in Nigeria and Uganda, fintech. So, as a round-up my presentation, we had to, I told you we had over 60 interviews, and a few of them had some things that you had to share. Now, or in the next 10 years, God says, I want to develop the ecosystem. We need investors who are willing to experiment and who would invest in experiments. The startup founder in Tanzania said the unwritten rule is that the founder must have either a white founder who came from Europe or US, or an African founder that is educated in the West. For many local founders, it is a challenge of developers and software engineers doing some gigs abroad, but the lockdown made it clear that everybody can now get a job outside the country. Now, finally, you know how I said at the end of the day we're supposed to gather all of all this to present as a blueprint for the EU. Opportunities, barriers, and recommendations. Yes, there's the opportunities in the African market. There is that knowledge exchange, human capital, just like I said, entrepreneurship. But then the barriers now became cultural differences, the gap in digital skills. Again, I said that we have 11 partners in the project. We are one, representing Nigeria. There's ATBN, the African Technology Business Network, they're based in the UK. They did all of this research, that we have today and we're using. So I hope that after now, we'll have a very productive, and fruitful deliberation. My colleague will present the African EU project, and then we'll get right into it. Thank you again for your time, and thank you for joining us.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So, despite of the African Sun, my name is Thomas. From movie innovation space in Tanzania. We're an ecosystem builder and developer. We are using projects African EU. Participants programming. So African EU is the first transcontinental networking project, and we aspire to create a support system for European and African digital hubs. And that we will share in pipeline, network, collaboration with projects and venture development. So basically, how we make the market easier and combine with the concepts. We aim to achieve this by using knowledge and experience sharing, drive the development of mutual and social and partnership proposals. Concepts and for actors to also support the creation of projects and how to foster innovation and growth and growth. We are
So apologies, I think she's having connection challenges. Let's wait and see if she'll join back. Technology. Yeah, Pam, you can go ahead.
okay. Okay, so I'll do it quickly. The internet doesn't use one to this. Yeah, so we are currently in phase 4 and phase 3 and 4. The project is based to the state-of-the-art context analysis of engagement, and I think he's talking about that. We then developed the African EU network in academy, and the discussed programs that have been here. All this is in design techniques, collaborations, and collaborative partnerships. And it's forward with the ongoing workshops that I would welcome you all to see, and webinars and masterclasses. And then we have the community development in South Africa, which is essentially what we do today. So what policies can we recommend, and how do we see the transcontinental partnerships going on, and how do we see and foster innovation and inclusive innovation system for all of us. And besides these opportunities, of course, we have our social media that are active. We encourage you all to check them out. We are on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter as African Youth. And with regards to the sessions, yeah. So we are in 3 quarters through. We are left with some, we're left with 4 boot camps, one should be Nigeria, in September, and Ghana, and in July, we're boot camps in Tanzania and Uganda. We have very few working as a master classes left, but with the big capitalism events that should be happening in November. Please watch our space for more information on this, and you can join. Again, the videos on the holidays are free if you go to African.eu, and if you register, you will gain access, but otherwise there's a network, there's a lot of resources that are out there. You can register for upcoming master classes, but also you can have access to previous any of the workshops or any master classes. Some amazing to you, and you can go back and watch all the resources that are available out there. Having said that, I look forward to this discussion. Thank you.
We're supposed to have representatives from NIDA join us this morning. Unfortunately, we have an important event happening and they couldn't send a representative. So in place of that, we're going to be talking about the Nigerian Startup Act. I'm just going to give a summary of some of the provisions that have been made because it's going to reflect in further conversations we had during this roundtable today. So the Nigerian Startup Act was signed into law by the President, the outgoing President, on the 19th of October 2022. The Act is the joint initiative of both the Nigerian tech startup ecosystem and the Presidency to harness the potential of our digital economy through co-created regulations. The objective of the Act is to provide for the creation and development of an enabling environment for technology-enabled startups in Nigeria and to position Nigeria's startup ecosystem as the leading digital technology center in Africa. The Act is divided into 10 parts with a total of 48 sections. And so I'm just going to list some of the notable provisions that the Nigerian Startup Act has and things that I believe that we should be aware of if you do not already know about the Act. How many of us here have gone through the Nigerian Startup Act? Partially, in person. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to give a brief summary of some of the provisions that we have in the Nigerian Startup Act. And so, one, there's the establishment of the National Council for Digital Innovation and Entrepreneurship, with the President being the chairman, alongside representatives of the federal executive arm of the government, the Director General of National Information Technology Development Agency, NIDA, as the Secretary, and representatives of the Nigerian Computer Society, the Computer Professionals, and the Startup Consultative Forum to be established. The Council is to monitor and evaluate regulatory frameworks, formulate and implement policy guidelines, oversee the harmonization of laws and regulations for the development of startups in Nigeria. NIDA is to serve as the Secretariat of the Council, with the Director General of NIDA serving in dual capacity as the Secretary of the Council and also the head of the Secretariat. There's the Startup Portal. The Act establishes a startup support and engagement portal, which is to serve as a one-stop shop or platform for startups to register with all relevant ministries, departments, and agencies. Startups can undertake such functions as registration with the Corporate Affairs Commission, the Nigerian Copyright Commission, and the trademarks, patent, and design registries for protection of their intellectual property rights, the National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion for Ease of Technology technology transfer, the Securities and Exchange Commission, and the Central Bank of Nigeria to ease the procedure for obtaining licenses for financial technology and to apply for CBN's regulatory sandbox or SEX regulatory incubation programs. Also grant access for startup finance, exchange information, receive complaints and recommendations from stakeholders and the public, among others. Product or process of digital technology, or the owner or author of a registered software. 4, the startup has at least 1/3 local shareholding held by one or more Nigerians as founder or co-founder of the startup. And number 5, if the startup is a sole proprietorship or partnership, it must satisfy the conditions set out in paragraphs 2, 3, and 4. And those are the criteria you need if you're going to get a startup label certificate. So from the foregoing, you can see that a company that has been operating for 10 years and above cannot acquire a startup label status. Companies with foreign shareholders that meet the criteria can acquire a startup label under the Act. That's if they have local founders or co-founders alongside them on the CAC documentation of that company. Another provision that I think we should take note of is the startup register. Upon the acquisition of a startup label status, the names and particulars of all labeled startups are entered in a register of startups. A startup label is valid for a period of 10 years only from the date of issuance. There's establishment of a startup investment seed fund. The fund to be set up is required to have a minimum of 10 billion naira only annually towards financing labeled startups and others as seed funds, grants, or loans under the section 27 of the Act. There's also the provision for trainings. The Act requires that a training and capacity building program should be designed for startups. Also, startups will have access to trainings for its employees to be facilitated by the Industrial Training Fund and other organizations that partners with the Secretariat for training of entrepreneurs and their employees. I think it's also important to note that aside from the startups getting trainings, it would be nice to see this Act implemented and ensure that even the agencies, ministries are carried along in equipping and empowering them to understand the technological trends so that there is no lapse. I think we're going to go further into that when we go into the panel sessions where we speak about further recommendations for implementing this Act. Another provision here is the tax and fiscal incentives. Label startups, as well as angel investors, venture capitalists, private equity funds, accelerators or incubators have access to various tax and fiscal incentives under the Act. The tax incentives are as follows. Label startups are entitled to the grant of tax reliefs and incentives under the Pioneer Status Incentive Scheme. Exempted from payment of income tax under the Industrial Development for an initial period of 3 years. There's also restriction under the Companies Income Tax Act that do not apply for these startups. Another incentive is as angel investors, venture capitalists, private equity funds, accelerators or incubators in labeled startups are entitled to an investment tax credit equivalent to 30% of their investment in the labeled startup. There's also capital gains tax, which is not to be charged on gains that accrue from assets disposed by them if the assets have been held in Nigeria for a minimum of 24 months. Another provision under the Nigerian Startup Act is crowdfunding. Startups can raise funds through SEX licensed crowdfunding intermediaries and commodities investment platforms on the startup portal. The listing on the Nigerian Exchange Limited, the Council will assist labeled startups to meet up with the eligibility requirements for listing on the Nigerian Exchange Limited or similar stock and commodity exchanges operating in Nigeria. There's also the provision for repatriation of capital and profits by foreign investors. Repatriation of investments in a labeled startup by foreign investors is guaranteed at CBN's official exchange rate, only upon presentation of a certificate of capital importation as evidence that the initial investment fund was injected through the proper channel. There's also the provision for accelerators and incubators. Development of accelerator and incubator programs for startups, formulation of a national accelerator and incubator policy for the establishment of accelerators and incubators, a register of accelerators and incubators that contribute to the startup ecosystem to be maintained by the Secretariat. Accelerators and incubators registered in the Secretariat will be entitled to some incentives, grants, and aids for research and development. There's also the provision of establishment of a technology development zone, which is referred to as the zone. It is to be established, and startups, accelerators, or incubators are eligible to apply to the zone prior to the commencement of an approved activity. Also, startups, accelerators, or incubators carrying out an approved activity in a zone will be entitled to incentives provided under the Nigeria Export Processing Zones Act. The final provision that I would like to highlight here is that of data protection. And data are to be used and processed in a responsible serves as the Secretariat with oversight duties over the activities of startups. I would also like to highlight that the Act, because I'm sure that we all have heard of different definitions of what a startup is, or the criteria for you to be categorized as a startup. So the criteria under the Nigerian Startup Act that qualifies you as a startup refers to tech startups that offer a unique digital innovative product, service, or process and have been in existence for not more than 10 years. That is the provision of the Act, and is not applicable to non-tech based businesses. A tool towards fostering the development and sustenance of an enabling startup ecosystem in the country. However, for the Act to attain its objective of being the leading digital technology center in Africa, it is imperative that both existing and prospective startups and other stakeholders fully engage in the ecosystem. And of more importance is the commitment of government through related parastatals and other players in the ecosystem to ensure the deployment of concerted and consistent efforts towards the implementation and achievement of the Act's objectives. Further to which, a 27-member committee comprising of the Nigerian Startup Act Implementation Committee charged with integrating and improving on the achievements of the ICT sector in the Nigerian economy was inaugurated on the 8th of March 2023. In summary, that's some of the provisions that have been made under the Nigerian Startup Act. We'll delve a bit further into that when we go into the panel. Glad to see that we have a representative from the Nigerian Startup Act team also present. So we'll delve right into that. And for the next session, I'd like to invite Adriano, who is going to his the managing director of ProtoTP. So the African, it wasn't mentioned when we were doing the introduction of the African EU project. So we're under, it's an EU funded project, and then there is the ICT family, which is also a group of other projects that are under the European Union. We belong to the ICT 58 family, as I like to refer. So there's the African EU, and there's also DigiLogi, and that's a project that Adriano has been working on. So please, let's put our hands together as we welcome Adriano to talk to us about local economic policies for African startups. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I have to use my speakers because I cannot hear very well. I will to take my notes on my So, thank you for inviting me to this event, first of all. Good morning, everybody. Good evening. Okay, we can start. Okay, let's start. I'm Adriano Mauro, I'm the Managing Director of Prototypi, and Prototypi is partner of DigiLogic. It's an H2020 project funded by European Commission. In the next 10 minutes, 20 minutes, we are going to see what DigiLogic is and what is Prototypi. What is DigiLogic project, what has accomplished so far, and then we move on the core of this policy roundtable, looking at the role of digital innovation hubs in the UE Africa and finally, we are just maybe open a discussion in Namibia, where we recently opened. Our mission is to foster technology transfer between Europe and Africa, and because of this mission, we are being involved in several Erasmus Plus projects, Horizon 2020, and ICT 58. We are also collaborating with GIZ with 2 different projects. One is related to the World Healthcare Innovation in Nigeria, where we have an hackathon here in Nigeria, where we are going to have an open day for a discussion of the results, the pitching of these innovators here in Abuja next month. On the other side, last week we are here in Abuja for a boot camp with a training for the selected digital innovator hubs, and we were contributing with the marketing and communication support strategy. Another activity which for a policy point of view is much relevant is the work we are carrying out for the African Commission with offices in Addis Abeba. We are designing and we are about to relaunch a multimedia campaign with a video and so on. Shark is our digital future, which actually communicate the digital education strategy that has been launched by the African Commission in the 2022, the Q4, and the important activity, the report activity and the new strategy of the African Union and the communication. And the internet governance as well. Okay. Okay, we can see now this short video that we have just presented.
And developing digital education in Africa has the power to improve learning and completion rates, promote digital skills which are crucial for employment, responsible citizenship, and livelihoods. Revitalize the teaching profession. Expand vocational training and higher education opportunities. Empower the continent, and it will continue to drive our work in the years ahead. African education needs safe and secure internet usage and high-speed connectivity accessibility barriers. All countries in Africa are working hard to improve access to digital education, but there is still much work to be done to provide schools access to internet, make devices available to teachers and students, establish data systems, and promote digital skills to mold an Africa we want. Leadership and collaboration is required in mobilizing the technical and organization in our education sector.
To be proud of the fact that the communication of the African Youth participate us today. It's a project that started in 2021 and it ends end 2023, the 3 years work, focus on closing the gaps for innovation and building bridges of cooperation with digital innovation hubs between Europe and Africa around a very specific topic that is a smart logistic. We took the rule of smart specialization, then we are developing now the project. Some key facts of our project. We are 7 partners from Finland, Germany. You can change. Okay, we are partners between Germany, Finland, Italy, Ghana, Nigeria, and Zambia. It's a project, like we said, is 3 years duration. The budget is around 2 million euros. And the coordinator is the partner in Germany, that is Fraunhofer Institute. This is a channel. It's a logistic hub in Dortmund, in Germany. Next, okay. Okay, let's see what are the key activities of the project. Very briefly, some of the activities that our project carry out in the last 3 years. We opened e-learning platform, a community online that now we have 1,000 members almost. We have organized more than 25 smart logistic webinars. We have podcasts. We have on smart logistic vertical. We have organized co-creation labs on specific topics on the logistic innovation. For example, the cold chain topic. We have developed capacity building activities on the vulnerable groups. Okay, as you said. Then we have launched a challenge for Africa innovators on the topic of logistics. We received 200 proposals and we selected 12 innovators and 1 from Europe and 11 from Africa. Now these innovators, we brought them in Europe last year in December in Finland, and from there they have enjoyed 1,000 hours of mentoring and coaching and support from the technological point of view to develop their solutions. The next activity is coming up in June. We will bring all the 11 African innovators in Cape Town, and they are going to present their solutions and in the event of the Africa Innovation Festival. You can change. Okay, the European Commission, they have defined an agenda, but it's going to be updated now. I think in June it's going to be updated, and it's being identified. They have identified for the priority, where they identify the priority areas of intervention: public health, green transition, innovation and technology, clean energy, and smart agriculture. So, and then the innovation technology and capacity for science. The Digital Innovation Hub is part of this innovation and technology, and they play the key role in this developing area. The innovation agenda has identified the SMEs, in particular the small companies and the innovators, and these are the areas where we can have cooperation between Africa and Europe. Then, okay, I lost my track. Okay, this agenda is going to support the companies supporting technology and innovation companies in the particular SMEs, we said. Now, supporting technology innovation apps, the network for acceleration and so on, and their collaboration between the two parts is clearly an element that would facilitate the collaboration between research and SMEs. So, digital innovation apps are called the key players, and they should play a key role in developing the human capital and the skills to enable this technology transfer and support the internship. This is the case for digital innovation apps in Europe and in Africa. Now, in 2022, and also early 2023, stakeholders across both continents have been engaged in the public consultation online. There was an event in November in Nairobi where again these topics and this priority has been discussed, and the results will now be used to develop short terms and actions on the ground. Next. What's next? What's next is the UN-EU Research and Innovation Ministerial meeting that is going to happen in Addis Ababa in June. And this will produce the updated innovation agenda, which should be the basis for Horizon Europe goals and so on. Last couple of slides. No. Now here we can show what are the challenges that we found in our activity. Point of discussion even in the future. Okay, first of the foremost economic one of the problems of the SMEs is the sustainability of the activity. The digital innovation hubs in Europe are heavily funded by public or by private industry that obviously in Nigeria is so difficult to find. It's very hard to retain the qualified staff. The high technical qualified talents are quickly stolen by other companies, and this is, I think, a problem that all of us in this room we found. Then often digital hubs offers soft skill training instead of much needed specialized ICT. Because most of the times the companies or the private sector needs verticals, but what we can find here is something that is horizontal, that is not really specified. The digital hubs are still not offering as before invest service and challenge connecting innovators with industries. As before, invest for SMEs and industry require infrastructure, even to run a pilot test or to do a demo or so on, and then the equipment and is a problem. Then digital apps are yet to be specialized, like we said before, just very few undertook smart digitalizations. In our case, we choose the logistic as a sector that could be developed. Okay? Okay. Let me find. Sorry, just a second. Just a second. On the ground. Some difficult to break the silos. There are several international donors. They are supporting digital innovation apps. You can see Orange Corners, the GIZ, etc. We tried to collect with some of them and take synergy, offer training and so on. It's not so easy, the collaboration. And here it means that we are running the risk of duplicating efforts rather than multiplying the positive effects. It's not easy for digital innovation apps to engage private industrial sector in the innovation process. Should be the driver, should be the main client at least. But we know there are not many manufacturing industries here in Nigeria especially, and they are not so eager to innovate. Maybe this is a missed opportunity for the industries and for the digital innovation apps as well, because it's a missed market, let's see. Now, we don't want to run the risk to duplicate and follow the model of Europe, just because it's a model of Europe. We have always to keep in mind what is the context where we operate, because we have specific challenges, and see what is the path for development that fits in his context. Last slide. how can we support in a long run the collaboration? Because the DigiLogic is ending, African EU is ending soon, since the other funding are coming from the Commission. One hypothesis, one of the questions is, should this collaboration of digital innovation apps be driven by the needs of the startup rather than by the needs of the digital innovator apps? And the example is DigiLogic. DigiLogic selected the innovators and now is offering the whatever training, is offering trainings and support based on each individual innovator needs. We don't have a streamlined course and everybody has to follow. No, we customize the course based on what they need. Could be this a model for digital innovator apps? We don't know. Could be an idea. Each digital innovation apps can ask to one specialist around Europe, ask for a topic. It's not, in our case, VTT that is offering what they have in catalog. Other point is, before looking at EU Africa, are we sure that African digital hubs are ready to collaborate, are already collaborating, creating synergies? Maybe yes, maybe not. Maybe we can think how it could be connected or how the connection could be reinforced in this scope. Finally, 2 points, smart specialization, opportunity, like we were saying before, is ready this country, Africa, or Africa, ready for smart digitalization or is not? Instead of looking at Europe, Africa, should we look at bilateral agreements between countries? I don't know, Nigeria and Slovenia, Nigeria and France. Maybe make the process faster and more efficient. This is just some thoughts that we have. And then maybe the panel can start to think about these points and then to start to develop their own ideas to share with us all our thoughts. That's all. Sorry for this. One that prepared the slide and there was not. Okay.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you. Welcome back, Dr. Ephraim. Dr. Ephraim, please, you can come up with culture. One more person, he's on his way. He was at the media event, but he's on his way, and when he comes, he will join us. Olaoluwa Olorunsomo, who is the co-founder of Seed Builders Innovation Hub. When he comes, he will join us. So good morning. Good morning once again. Thank you everyone for being a part of today's discussion. I will like for you to introduce yourselves for 1 minute. Just tell us briefly what you do. Start with Tracy.
Hi everyone, my name is Tracy Okoro Isaac. I am the founder of Business Academy Africa, founder of Blue Collar, and I currently lead the state adoption efforts of the Nigerian startup.
morning. My name is Dr. Ephraim Orifi. I work for the National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion, the Director of Technology Transfer Registration.
Good morning. My name is Hawa Ibrahim Khadija. Currently work with the Nigerian Data Protection Bureau in the Legal Enforcement and Regulations Unit. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anderson Emmanuel. I'm the founder of Info Technologies, co-founder of the Confirm app, and the CTO at Mac. Basically, we are into IT consultancy and developing ideas.
If you don't mind, can you pass the line?
Okay.
So Nigerian startups, like every other business in Nigeria, is faced with several challenges from poor infrastructure to stifling policies, high cost of doing business, regulatory bottlenecks, and I think as in response to that, the Nigerian Startup Act was, was put into law. And so this question is for you, Tracy. In order to ensure that it's not just a federal law, we see that the team has put in place a state-by-state adoption strategy to ensure that all states in the federation are carried along. I think you guys have listed about 5 to 6 states right now. And what has the reception been so far? And are the states looking like they're going to adopt and implement laws? And you can just give us a little bit of background of the work that has been done so far. Thank you.
Thank you so much. When we say these things about startups, we just like to rattle off the English around it and not tell the heart of the story. Is that it's hard work being a startup. Yep. It's one of the hardest things you're ever going to do. But then it's also hard being a startup in Nigeria. And so being a startup in Nigeria means that you have to fight with every other thing that someone else is fighting, and then fight some more. And so we literally looked at that and said, what's the whole fight about? And we came to the fact that at the intersection between where the government meets the people, which are the founders and the startups, there's a disconnect. So the thing is, disruptors decide that, you know what, we've got some of the greatest ideas mankind have ever seen, and then we go and create it. For example, like the bank app. Someone decided, you know what, I don't want to be fighting in the bank anymore. They have carried me out this week 3 times from UBA. Let me create a bank app. And then they created it, and it's fantastic. You and I were here, we're just sitting down at home and we've transferred how much. But we don't understand that when we created that, 2 million people lost their jobs. Because you know what, people are not coming into banks, and banks are looking at that as, why do we pay more people? And then the government is angry, because they're still trying to solve 1.5 million people unemployed. You now gave them extra 2 million people. So what do? They ban. We go and say we've dug up cryptocurrency. They ban. Everything, they ban. So we had to reach out to the government and say, oh, I think we're not communicating with each other. We actually want to solve this problem, right? And so this is what it is. And the government said, let's come together to create something that allows us, solve the problem, but also think of the displacement. So what happens when we do a disruption is that there's a displacement. So the NSA comes at the intersection between this disruption and displacement, so that before you disrupt, the government is ready for that disruption, and so they can handle the overlap of the displacement, which means that instead of maybe these people losing their jobs, they will be trained and redirected, certainly pivoted. So we did all that work. 800 volunteers across Nigeria, even some parts of Africa and all over the world came together, and we created the Nigerian Startup Act. But we run a federal system of government, which means that even though we have the NSA, right, people will still travel to Lagos because it's easy to do business in Lagos, right? It's easy to do business in Abuja. People will still go there. But how do we create an environment that is truly enabling if we do not create a policy or a legislative framework in our state that allows that enabling environment to be created? For example, imagine a founder who's building Osun State, right? He's dealing with so many problems because in Osun, the pole has fallen, and before they will bring back that pole, right, is the problem. So he doesn't even have light to test his MVP. So he moves to Lagos. So that talent goes to Lagos. So the state adoption project is literally saying, we need to make sure that our states are habitable and profitable enough for founders, talents to be able to thrive. It's not just about, going to found a company. There are talents. I like how, when, he was speaking earlier and he said that there's a problem with talent, strong talents, you finish training talent, one ICT company will just come and collect them. Well, I think that, we sort of call it the Japa syndrome. I think that Japa is not a bad thing. It's that we're not out training. We're not out training Japa. Imagine if we produce 100,000 software developers and 2,000 travel. That's not our problem, right? So it's important that we focus on properly training. It's not all these, I'm so sad at the level of training we're given. We create all these incubation programs and just do some haphazard training. No, it is that we need to train properly. When we train properly, then we know we actually have 100,000 people who are proper software developers that can work anywhere in the world in such a way that if someone poaches a software developer from you, you can get another software developer that is good or even better. Because why? Capacity development has been done. So, I'm going to round up by just saying that the states were they were excited. It's like they had been looking for this thing. And one of the things we also did was, because while we were creating, we saw that some states were just doing copy and paste of the National Act. And we said no. The idea of creating policies in states is that we need your policy to reflect the current realities and the nuances of the guy in Osun State and the guy in Abia State, or the lady, right? Because the problem that the lady or the female founder is facing in Akwa Ibom is different from the problem the female founder is facing in Lagos, right? And so it's important that we recognize these things while you're creating as a state. And so we came up with a template that would allow states to think outside the box and create policy documents or legislations that favor. We've gone to 10 states, but we've engaged with 6. From next month, we'll start to go more, we'll start to move around more to another state. We're looking at, so from the lessons learned, I'm sorry, I need to just quickly do this. From the lessons learned from the states we've gone to, we found that something that I didn't get your name, so what's your name? Adriano. Something that Adriano said that was very important is that ecosystems are there, right? They're talking, but they're not properly connected. So our new program that we're doing now is that we're going to go to each state, but leave it with an ecosystem that is able to connect with the next state's ecosystem. So for example, let's say Osun State has now said that we're going to focus on training, right? It means that there's an ecosystem in Osun State where someone in Abia can say, we have 200 founders in Abia who don't have talents, and Osun State can give Abia State talent, right? Because everyone is interconnected. There's a dashboard where we're seeing this is what is currently going on here, and this is how everybody can work together. Because, small story, I remember that I was working with a group of people, and we're paying them well, but something happened halfway. They came to me and said, you know what, we have 8 hours with you every day, but we need to do something about it. And these people who are earning about 450,000 every month, and I was feeling like it was big money, all of a sudden, they decided that they're earning $75 an hour. $75 an hour for someone who's going to who's going to be doing 8 hours. Every month they'll be earning about 13.5 million. That's my 400,000 was chicken change. Now, I found that these same talents, if we open them to a global network, will earn more. And what does that earn more mean? It means better quality of life for not just them, but for the families and communities around them. So where does this state adoption come in? It is that I want to partner with the likes of Adriano, of everybody, every ecosystem partner, you and you, while we're doing this state adoption, so that your presence is not just felt here in Abuja, it's also felt in your state, in your community, in such a way that startups have a better life. Because you know what? Government and international money will not save us, will not solve our problem. What will solve our problem are mission-driven founders who are solving some of the hardest problems in our communities that at the end of the day will bring out our lives from the current situation it is and give us better quality of lives. Thank you.
I think I should be passionate about the work that she's doing with the Nigerian Startup Act. Kudos to you and the team. So Anderson, my next question is for you. We've heard a lot about talent deficit. It's come up twice now, just this morning in this conversation. So what are the challenges you face as a founder in terms of retaining talent, and what do you think, what are the measures you think can be put in place to ensure that we're training and retaining the right type of talents within our ecosystem? I know that Tracy has highlighted training, which is very, very important, but what other incentives do you think we can include to ensure that we're retaining and training and retaining the right talents? Thank you.
Basically, what has been said so far is actually not a single problem with every tech company faces that issue, where you get a staff, you train, get them to perfection at some point, and at the end of the day, they walk up to you and say, I want to leave. You try to increase salaries, I want to leave. So we've, at Nibble Tech, what we decided to do is not only outsourcing, the issue of working from home, we decided to create a more comfortable environment for them. So we introduced the hourly charges for our talents so they can actually do other things aside from working with us. We also created an avenue whereby we pay via time. We have timelines, we have milestones. So when we're engaging you, we're giving you a milestone. We're not keeping you from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. or from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. as other companies actually carry out. But what we would suggest is the ecosystem we currently have in Nigeria, the hubs we currently have in Nigeria, everything is all actually concentrated in Lagos and Abuja. We've actually proposed to have state-owned ecosystem whereby trainings in states, because there are a lot of smart people that are not in Abuja. I've met a lot of smart people that are from Ondo State, I've met a lot of smart people that are from Kebbi State, but they are not being utilized because why? The state-owned systems are not even working. So if we're going to introduce state-owned centers, state-owned hubs that would get these guys engaged, they know that, okay, I don't need to leave this country to be able to access jobs. I don't need to leave my state to travel to Lagos to be useful as a tech person. You understand? I think it will actually solve the problem of actually losing training your staffs, and it will solve the problem of losing staffs that you've invested in. Because a lot of tech companies actually invest in these people and they wake up and you can hold them. So if we create an enabling environment where they can thrive from their own comfort, I believe it will keep them.
Thank you. So I know you mentioned creating an enabling environment, and one of the tips that you did give based on your own experience is, giving them some time to work on other projects or other gigs. So my next question is for you, Hawa. And what are the provisions that are being put in place by the Nigerian Data Protection Bureau to ensure that data is being used and processed in a responsible manner? Just before you answer that, Dr. Ephraim, I'd like you to just start to think about some of the provisions that has also been created by NOCA in ensuring the ease of technology transfer within the startup ecosystem. Hawa.
Thank you. So basically, the Nigerian Data Protection Bureau moves towards accountability. Okay, there are 3 key players in this ecosystem, i.e. the data controllers, we have the data subjects, or we have the data processors. So accountability mainly rests on the data controllers. The Nigerian Data Protection Bureau ensures that they submit their audits through an appointed data protection compliance organization. This appointed data protection compliance organization, in acronym BPCO, is licensed by us. We have over 150 now. They actually come through them, they submit their audits. This is to identify their lacunas, all data controllers' lacunas in their data practices, and to also ensure accountability to the law, basically. And also the Nigerian Data Protection Bureau ensures that they appoint DPOs, that's the data protection officers, these data protection officers interfaces with the data protection compliance organization. They actually help the data protection compliance organization understand the practices of the data controllers. And it is the responsibility of the data controller to safeguard the rights of the data subjects. So to ensure the enabling environment and the confidence of data subjects in the ecosystem. So also the Bureau has taken steps to conduct courtesy visits to MDAs where we discuss and also relay the message to mostly ministries, departments, and agencies to let them know the importance of data protection in this organization. Also, the Office of the Accountant, the Office of the Secretary General of the Federation also issued a circular mandating all MDAs to comply with this provision, i.e. the NPPR. But currently we have the Act, which is Data Protection Bill, which has been passed by the Senate recently and hopefully will be passed by the House of Reps. And then again, we have consent and we have privacy policies. These privacy policies are put in place for data controllers to obtain consent of the data subjects so that it will ensure data subjects have confidence in conducting business and conducting transactions with the data controllers. Thank you very much. I hope I've addressed the bill.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Thank you. My office is called the National Office for Technology Acquisition and Promotion. It's a government agency set up to facilitate the technology transfer from foreign countries to Nigeria. Initially in the 80s, it was concentrated on foreign technologies. Essentially, it was mandated to store the foreign technologies that come into the country and set up mechanisms to learn from that foreign technology that comes to Nigeria. So if you have another technology that is being ported or somebody in Nigeria wants and developed brings to the country, the office is supposed to galvanize the innovation system to be able to learn from that foreign technology and innovate and learn technology. But as time progressed, we needed to also change our strategy because a lot of technologies are being developed in the local environment. So we now have a component of our mandate which is to facilitate the development of local technologies. Of course, we know a lot of softwares are being developed by especially young people these days. And one of the things we do to support these young innovators is to first teach them about the need for protection of whatever inventions and innovations they have. Because a lot of people develop things, they don't know what to do with it, they publicize it without knowing the intrinsic value of what they have developed. So we assist them first to protect those inventions and innovations. Of course, it's the Environmental Trademark Registry that has a right to issue licenses for protection for IP and patents. But we assist the local vendors, innovators, whether operator or private, to get these patents for their inventions. First, we guide them on filling necessary forms, paying necessary fees, and then assist in getting the patents from the patent register. Then, getting patents is just one component of the process. But where the challenge is commercializing. How do you bring what you have, regardless whether it is protected or not, into the market? You know, a lot of issues are involved. So the phone, the technical, the marketing, distribution. So a lot of things. So what we do is to try to gather where they can develop their inventions further for collaborators and make sure that as much as possible, if it is an invention that is technically and feasible, then it is developed, and then for it to go to the market, of course, it has to be commercially viable. So we assist them. We provide funds where it is necessary, of course, with network capacity. We link them to other agencies to be able to make sure they are assisted. We also introduce them to foreign service providers. We know, for example, WIPO, the World Intellectual Property Organization, assist the office for us to be able to assist the people who actually have inventions and to develop. But of course, we know that between the private sector and public sector in Nigeria, I would say the private sector as of now, they seem to be ahead of the public sector because of course the funding issues. So a lot of people come with inventions, innovations that need serious support to be able to bring into the market, not just one-off support. We need a lot of reforms, policies, strategies, programs. So, of course, the government, we know about the Presidential Business Council that is under the office of the Vice President, which has helped a lot over the past few years to ease the challenges investors and investors encounter in the process of doing business. Because those reforms are part of the support structure. Somebody comes to our office, wants to get protection for his intellectual property, or want to register a joint venture with a foreign partner for a particular piece of technology, or want support to be able to get a product to the market. So it is the office that has to assist to be able to do that, assisting to the satisfaction of the client that has come. So it's a whole range of services that are provided so that we be able to provide these services to the clients. Even as I speak here, there is one innovation hub in around Innovate 8. Yes, you know it. We have been working to also see how our office can be able to support such people who come to them to be able to, whether to incubate there or to find funding or any assistance we can give them. So essentially galvanizing the innovation system, the innovation partners, the stakeholders in the system to be able to translate ideas into the market. And of course, yes, we talk about also talent. Also identifying that talent is an aspect which we also try to do because most of the people who support are people who have developed to a particular point, and then we see them and take them out. But before that process of reaching a threshold to identify, it's also important for investment to be made there so that people who have some talent but are not yet able to develop it to a particular point where they will be seen, also have a responsibility to lift them up and give them the necessary support so that they will be able to be visible before then other support structures can come to help them.
So, I was going to just say something before I give you the mic. So you see what he says, and it sounds so tedious. Imagine a company or a founder having to go through all this process. In implementing the Nigerian Startup Act, we're creating something we're calling the labeling portal. That labeling portal is bringing everybody together so that when you get on the portal, you do all the things you need to do. So intellectual property, go through NOTAP, you go through, but you see, data protection for me is a big dicey. Because as a country, we don't even have our database stored somewhere. Like, we don't have like a central network of database. And a lot of times, founders struggle to find data to use to build and work, right? So while we're crazy about, protecting data consent, I think that, we need to focus more on how to provide data, right? For more founders to be able to build, right? So, I'm excited about what your office is doing, but I'm also looking forward to where, right, cross-border data sharing. What is it? What is your policy on that? What are we working? Now we have AI, right? What is that conversation about? I think I need our agent, maybe not we need our agencies to sort of transform much more than they currently are and look at what the international market is doing, right? And how they're building their own startup scene to be able to not just, because I'm hearing all these, we're doing, but I'm on the ground and I'm seeing that it's not happening. People are not getting all this help. So instead of just we're doing, we want to see we've done, and this is the impact and result. I'm sorry that, when people bring me to a panel, I typically say it's very dangerous to bring me to a panel because I'm just going to say the truth, right? And I'm going to call out people that I need to call out. So this is it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tracy. So when Howard was responding to the question, why I brought it up was I read after the question I asked Anderson, and he mentioned one of the things that they're doing for their talents is letting them work on other things. So how do we ensure? You spoke about cross-border data sharing and all that. If they're working with you and then they go on and they take on personal gigs or other side gigs, making sure that they're not like breaching some of the
Engagement contract.
engagement contracts and sharing. So what is your bureau doing in terms of ensure? Well, you answered that you did. You answered that slightly, and I think focus around the MPAs and all that. But when it comes to the startup side of things, like Tracy has mentioned, like around we see a lot of discrepancies. There are no holistic like database where we can get everything that we want. And then there are
Where's the
people,
data that you are protecting?
and then there are people who are doing backyard work and providing data illegally. How are we going to ensure that all this is covered in with the current government?
But you can start by saying Rome was not built in a day. And you know the Nigerian Data Protection Bureau, I don't know if you're aware, was created recently, 4th of February 2022. Formerly was working under NIDA as a department and we're implementing the NDPR then. So, cross-border transfer of data. Recently, we even had an engagement with the Nigerian Immigration Services and IOM because Nigeria and Niger are in an MOU of data of immigrants, yes, if I'm not mistaken. Immigrant data transfer, so exactly, and Data Protection Bureau was there to ensure that their policies and their frameworks there surround the protection of data. And also, yes, we are working, I think recently we had another meeting too with NIMSI. We're working on having a central database for Nigeria generally. So people store data in banks. So Nigerians have their PII in banks. Nigeria have their PII in schools. Nigeria have their PII in various organizations. You name it. So while we're working towards getting a central based data, just like the United States of America, then we can actually protect those data that are being submitted to these banks, where we hold banks accountable. I don't know if you know the recent fine we issued to Weber Bank. Data breach, and also Union Bank. We're still investigating a couple of other banks, Zenith and GT Bank. So we are actually doing, you do what you can and contribute to your quota. And we're doing a good thing because when you get to international organizations, that's when you understand, okay, yeah, we're going somewhere. Recently, we had a meeting in Burkina Faso with the Network of African Data Protection Authorities. There we understood that we have gone far in Africa, like Nigeria has taken a step. And even the model we have adopted, like the Data Protection Compliance Organization model, is being copied currently by Kenya. And they're actually pleased with it, and they're actually wanting to emulate more of our data protection practices and all that. So we're getting there. It's a work in progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. While the session is going on, Ola, who is the co-founder at CPO's Innovation Hub, has joined us. So welcome, Ola. My next question is going to you. So, in March.
So there's going to be some funding and some program that will allow early stage, innovators to be funded, to be helped, right? The Silicon Valley in the US was majorly built with government money because government was throwing money at innovation. When you have your community innovating, you're going to have so many solutions than problems, right? And so that's sort of the thing that we want to look at, right? Train people to be talent, but also train people to know how to create, businesses that are valuable. So it's not just, I'm a founder, I have a business that we're trying to do. We're looking at some of the solutions, like we said, that are solving some of the hardest problems in the country, right? So there's going to be fund, a program that will deliver funds to early stage. There's going to be some middle stage, and there's going to be the harder stage. Now, the iDice is one program. There are other programs that are going to come. Now, when there is an enabling environment, right, you will see more investments coming to investors. The 10 billion is annually. If we give out 10 billion every year to startups, and in 5 years, right? I'm sure maybe after we've tried the first year, 10 billion, we found out that, okay, this 10 billion is small. But also, you see, we're not just giving out money, we're looking at what are the investment perspectives, right? What are we getting back? Is this working? If it is working, we're like, okay, how do we increase this to 50 billion? Because you see, it's only something that works that you pour more, more oil or more whatever to. So we look at it, if we need to increase it to 1 trillion, right? We will. But that's just like, because you have to have a platform to be able to jump off to something else. And that's what it is. So the iDice is going to be also another platform. But I feel like the iDice is an attempt at pulling other stakeholders to bring in that funding, right? So instead of founders going off on their own to go and say, oh, I've raised $2 million, $3 million seed funding, there are going to be programs that are focused on delivering this funding. And so the labeling portal, like you said, is currently being built, right, by NIDA. For me, I had a problem with that, and anybody can take it to NIDA, is because we wanted to circumvent that bureaucracy, right? But we still fell into it. And so that's why we haven't, that portal business hasn't happened. But we're following up to see that portal happens. And because the way the Nigerian Startup Act was created is that it's really hard for anybody to be able to do any corrupt thing, because someone is checking someone, and without the other person can't check another person. And so there's a lot of civil society organizations, founder organizations that are there in the consultative forum. So the labeling portal will soon be up. When it is up, I would say to everybody, right, go register, make sure you get a label. Part of the reasons why digital innovation hubs in every country, or rather that need to be in every state, is that new founders, right, early stage founders need the support of that ecosystem to be able to validate their solution, right? Because if you validate your solution and you have all that you require, when you get to the labeling portal, it's easy for you to register. But if you just do it alone and you go and submit and then you are not validated, you can say, oh, nobody's looking at you. So it's important. Part of the thing that the Startup Act also is that it's giving funding to digital innovation hubs and the different stakeholders in the ecosystem to help build these founders that are going to be labeled. Or else we'll have a lot of problems, like we have in incubation programs. People have a lot of ideas, but they're not viable enough for people to put them on the air. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lucy. At the start, excuse me, at the start of this event today, I gave a summary of the Nigerian Startup Act. I think it would be very, very good for you to go equip yourself with the information in there so that you know what the opportunities that you stand to get as a startup founder. If you have not already gone through it, please go read and see all the opportunities available. We spoke about the startup movement, and Tracy has also emphasized when the portal is ready, please do ensure that you go out and register your business on the portal. Anderson,
I just wanted to add something. Okay, I just wanted to add. In as much as we are saying we don't want to create a stifling environment for startups, we should also look at it that data protection is not trying to stifle any regulation or try to stifle startups and all that. Because in as much as we want a central database, we're working on links and all that, we should look at it. There are sanctions being given because data privacy is a sensitive issue now across the globe. It's not just particular to a country. I mean, Amazon, Google, all this. I think Meta recently was also sanctioned. So we should look at it that we need to move with the global trend, and we'll get it right. Definitely not now, but we'll get it right, even if it's in the nearest.
Oh, I'm saying that you're important, but we need to have data for you to be able to
protect.
There's data submitted to data controllers. There's data.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's give the microphone to Anderson. So Anderson, in order to achieve a holistic digital transformation in Nigeria, how do you think the incoming government should go about solving this challenge?
Okay, first things first, we need to look at active implementation of every policy that has been issued. Why did I say active implementation? Over the years, different policies. And we in tech, we see Nigeria as a platform, as a country that you start off something, they get interested. If they want to be a part of it, if they can't, they bring up a policy that affects it. For instance, I will use in Lagos, GoCada. GoCada was there solving a problem. The policy came and that business died after receiving a lot of funding. I can name a lot of them. Now, we're switching to fintech. There are policies that are coming up that is making it really difficult to actually own a fintech startup. So, first things first, we need to look at who are the people in charge of these policies. Do they understand tech? When we speak to them, when we throw our ideas to them, do they really understand what we're saying? You understand? So that is the first step to solve the problem of all the bottlenecks we are facing. A lot of startups will say, we need money. But if you have the money and then there's a policy that is stopping your business from going to the next level, it crumbles. So my suggestion is the people that are in charge, from NITDA to the new policy implementation of the Startup Act, those that are in charge should be people that really understand tech. That is the only way to make it work. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Just please hold on with the microphone. With regards to the newly announced national blockchain policy, there's a lot of talk around how all the sectors should try to implement because it's good. You spoke about the fintech, for example. They came up with different applications that cryptocurrency and whatnot, related to the blockchain, and then there's a policy to block that. How do you think that, in your opinion, how do you see this new policy playing out in connection with the Nigerian startup?
First things first, when you're introducing a new policy, you look at who is affected directly. When we talk about monetary policy, some of us in this room, let me take us back to when we had the Naira crisis a couple of months ago. Some of us in this room didn't really face that problem because we did on transfers. But the likes of people in Cairo, they were the ones suffering. It's safe to say we actually even suggested a solution for them that, okay, this is the way you should solve this problem. You're doing cashless policy. You should be able to think of these guys that are actually using cash. Because most of us in this room don't even care about the cash. You understand? So when they have introduced a new policy talking about cryptocurrency and all that, you need to come out and do publicity. For me, you need to talk to these guys and say, come, this is how this thing works. The e-Naira is a very wonderful idea, but implementation is a problem. So if we start by what we've already developed, I believe it will go a long way to actually, increase, not only increase the usage, but the trust in the system. You understand?
Thank you. Give me my thoughts to allow the work. So different startups at different stages to pass through your hub, and I'm sure that you are able to meet each and every one of them. How do you think that? So yes, we have the IDIs which has now been announced, and how many people can you? Because there are lots of startups spread across Nigeria, so it's not just for a particular set of people, and that might not necessarily be enough. But how do you think that we can leverage on the diaspora network to also help encourage and provide support for the Nigerian startup ecosystem?
Thank you for that question. Again, so as investor for Tech for Good, co-founder of an innovation hub, the idea of what we're creating is not just training, but a lot of advocacy, right? A lot of people, a lot of individuals in Abuja actually have funds to support startups. But you see that what they do is to create plazas, real estate, construction. They just keep on investing in what, at the end of the day, cannot give them exponential results, and also lead to what we call reduction in unemployment. So what we're doing is also reaching out to people in the diaspora. The startup ecosystem in Nigeria is booming. We should be part of this. We should, invest in this because we see it as a future to actually have a sustainable growth. So again, while the ideas is there, definitely I've looked at even the applications. Some innovation hubs cannot even apply to the fund managers, and that's the fact of the matter because of the criteria in being part of it. My question would be, fund managers, do they even interact with startups? Let's be real, some of them do not interact, they don't even know the problems of startups. But of course, as an investor for Tech for Good, our job is to do a lot of advocacy, telling people it is safe to invest in startups because some of them don't even typically know the name of startup. Even people that even come to the hub, they say, oh, they're building a startup. Ask them, what is your solution? At the end of the day, it's just a typical small business, right? So a lot of advocacy is what we've been promoted to get local funding, because there's a lot of issues with when you get foreign players to actually fund local startups. What happens is that they tell them, you need to open your organization in the United States, you need to pull back your profits back to the United States. So there's a lot of things going on in that area which we're trying to get local funding for local startups rather than just depending on foreign funds for startups.
Thank you. Tracy.
So I'm going to say this and run away because they might arrest me like to my finish.
Sorry, let me ask my last question.
Great.
So you just, put both of them together. Do you foresee any barriers in the implementation of the Nigerian Startup Act? And you can just share.
And that's what I was going to talk about. Our greatest problem, not just in Nigeria, in the world, is that people don't talk to people. If you check, some of the hardest problems in your life, if you just talk to somebody, or the person allows you to talk to them, it will be solved. His fears, and everybody's fears about some of the policies, and even what he talked about, is the fact that nobody is talking to anybody. So Bank of Industry sits down, 4 people in the room, and say, we have 40 billion, how we will do it? One lady say, I guess 60, my community, we have 60 people, let's just involve, once we just involve 1/3 training, we can give them the money. They say, oh, yeah, go and do it. You, how you do your own? And then they come to us, they pay money for all these videos, and we see on the video, they say Bank of Industry this year has spent $4 billion helping the entrepreneurship community. Excuse me, who are the entrepreneurs? They make the money to, right? And so if only they literally came to the startup community and said, we have 400 billion, what we need to do this, but look at the impact we need to do, then somehow, yes, you would have bad eggs, right? But you see, you're not going to stop flying just because there is a plane crash, right? So I need people to talk to people because you see, the Nigeria Startup Act may fail in implementation. Well, I would have died by that time, but it may fail because some people will have their personal agendas. For example, the implementation committee is one sign that it may fail. But you see, we have resilient people who built this act. So we're going to keep fighting to make sure that the reason why we created this act, right? We achieve it. You talked about GoCard. GoCard is one of the reasons why we created the Nigerian Startup Act. So government doesn't wake up immediately and just keep doing anything that it wants to do. But you see, people are the ones in government, and they are going to do whatever they want to do as long as they have power. Where you and I come in is that you can't sit down and complain. If you need to go to NIDA and shut down NIDA for NIDA to listen to you, please do the needful. Because you see, the money is your money. There's no money that is in any budget that belongs to any government or a startup. It belongs to the citizen, right? There's IDICE. You need to follow up with IDICE. How do we get this money? Follow up. I remember a lady, one of my friends that she had a problem. She needed money. So one day she came to me, she said, I need to move my business to another level and I need 10 million. I said, if you check my account now, 20K don't even got me. But since you divide 10 million, give me 20K. Ma go also see the people will give you 10 million. In the evening, I saw her. She sent a message to a few of our friends and put us in the group and said, all of you that want to learn how to make afang soon, blah, 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 pay 2K, I'll drop down, I'll teach you. And we were excited. All of us just immediately entered. So we felt like she was an exclusive group. By the morning when we woke up, this exclusive group, now 300 people there. 2K times 300. I just want you to understand. Then, next thing, she just posted video, pam, pam, pam. She now said this video will be deleted in the night. Carefully go through it, download it. All of a sudden, by the time I woke up, they removed me from the group. I've never downloaded it. My 2K has gone. So I just said to her, I said, what's all this scam that you're trying to do? She said, no, it's not scam, no. That she's doing business, right? I have to follow the times. She said, okay, there's one exclusive group that is just going to be 10 of us, this is 15K. She will do it personally. I say, okay, we join. 15K, I open. She even moved to Telegram, 1,000. She dropped video, dropped this, dropped. I have to send her a message. I said, no. You told me exclusive group. She did not answer me. This I'm telling you that 15K times 1,000. Please go and check. In 1 week, she made her target. She deleted all of us and moved on. I want you to understand that opportunities will not be given to you. You will have to find it and you will take it, right? Because if we keep waiting for us to be handed what rightfully belongs to us, we won't get it. I'm not sending you to go and riot. I'm telling you that look around you and look for all the opportunities that you can hold on to make sure it works, right? Government bureaucracy might be one of the reasons why the Startup Act may fail, but I promise you, like I said, until I die, I will keep pushing to make sure it doesn't. Because the reason why we're even doing state adoption is that if on the national level it doesn't work, it must work at the state level. We must make sure it works. Another thing is that if founders are not willing to do what it takes, so willing to do what it takes is that the due diligence required, right? He's talking about how the criteria for fund management. We need it to be thorough because Nigeria, look at small Hilda Bachi that is cooking. Somebody opened Guinness Book of Record account and say that Hilda that doesn't have salt and whatever, they should raise money. The level of fraud and whatever in Nigeria is high, right? Just like in other countries. So the criteria is important for you and I, but we need to go and meet it too. You saw me, I came my laptop, there's something I'm applying for. I'm doing the due diligence so that wherever I go to, right, nobody will look down on me because I've done the work. So take your time, do the work. We that are here that are fighting, we will fight for you. But I want to make sure that at the other end, when I'm fighting, you come through, right? You actually warrant the fact that I fought for you. And not when you come there and then I say that it's SME that you're doing. I will now run away, right? It has been a pleasure having a conversation with you guys. What I will also insist on doing is this public awareness, right? There's going to be a lot of orientation. Hopefully, that will help us, right? It's going to be a lot of orientation to make sure that startups found, not just startup found, the full ecosystem is carried along on all the projects that need to happen for this to happen. As a startup, go build, go innovate, and don't innovate for outsiders. Start from your community, right? They will be the greatest people that will thank you when you're old and great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure having you. So the last question for this session is, and anybody can answer this, and the participants also on the other side can participate in this question. So do we have recommendations for policies in ensuring transcontinental partnerships? For example, between Africa and Europe. And I like when Adriano mentioned that we need to also consider, so that it's implementable, right? Rather than look at the entire continent, how can we think about doing it on a country-by-country basis? For example, we said Nigeria, France, Nigeria, Netherlands, for example. So do we have recommendations on how policies that we can push forward to the government in ensuring that there are transcontinental partnerships? Feel free to raise up your hand and I'll bring the microphone to you. Do I have anybody in the panel that would like to take that? Thank you.
Yes, I will say, of course, what we need to do with as much as possible to involve in the course, because knowledge cannot be created anyway, and there is no environment that has monopoly on knowledge. So partnerships, whether it is local or intercontinental, is very important. Look for partnerships in your area of specialty. You find them. Those partnerships are what will help you get more knowledge and also point the ways forward for you. So as much as possible, businesses both look for partnerships, private partnerships, bilateral partnerships, multilateral. So they are very important. They will help you to acquire money and help you to grow.
Thank you very much.
So, one of the policy changes I think that can improve the cross-border partnerships is for us to make it mandatory for state-owned incubation centers. So, I'm a foreigner, I'm coming to Nigeria, I know where to go to. I'm not going to the likes of venture parks and the rest that they're already big, you understand? So, I know that I can see another tech hub. There's a place I'll go and check out and say, okay, there's like 10 new tech hubs in Abuja, there's 20 in Cross River. You understand that we can go into implementing the Startup Act, which allows for states to own their own venture platforms, and the rest will also aid in these partnerships.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from our participants or our panelists? We do have one.
Hi, thank you very much, everyone. I'm Daniela from Innovation Hub. I'm a statistician by training, right? So the data part of it is close to my heart. I love practicing. I wanted to find out, is there a collaboration between your agency, the Data Protection, and the National Bureau of Statistics, the National Population Commission? Because I believe, and when Tracy was saying there is no data for founders to use, it is a very true situation. Because even when I'm working with them to do research, build their pitch decks, it's always what someone somewhere else has said we have. So it's a genuine problem we have. So is there a collaboration going on to maybe hasten the database creation or some? Because NBS truly is trying. There's some things they are putting out which makes sense, but I think a lot more can be done. So is there anything happening on that? Thank you.
Thanks for your question.
Okay, when the bureau was created in February, my national commissioner made it mandatory for himself to visit MDAs. We wrote multiple letters to multiple MDAs. I can't say the numbers. We visited quite a number of them, and MBS was part of it too. We have written to Population Commission, but I don't think we got any response from them yet. These are people that hold a lot of data, and these are people that mostly they control a lot of data of Nigerians. As you said, one of the major problems we are having is communication. Earlier, I think one of us said it earlier. We don't have good communication between the FPIs from federal public institutions. We don't have good collaborations. And once we've not established that communication, we cannot have a central database. Nigeria Immigration Services should work with NIMC, but they will not. If they will do that, we will not be talking about central database today. We have been going for meetings, a couple of them, ID4D. This is what ID4D is doing. We have been going for a lot of meetings, a couple of them, we're going back and forth, back and forth. When you visit the Nigeria Immigration Service, they feel you're trying to attack them. They feel you're trying to audit them. They are holding a lot of data. They don't want you to see what they are doing. But we are not trying to checkmate them. We just want to know, okay, what are you doing? What policies, technical organizational measures you've put in place to protect individuals' data? But they don't want to do that. So hopefully, with my national commissioner's intent to create massive awareness, that is why we went to the OSGL, and that's how we got the circular. Now, gratefully, we have a lot of MDAs working with us, and MBA has not really given us, they have not really given us, let's say, or go ahead. Like I said, the problem is communication and understanding what we are doing. So if they really understand what we are doing, that's when they will give us the open door to go in with them and work with them and understand that we are not doing anything. All we are doing is just for the interest of you and I, because we are all data subjects at the end of the day. Have I addressed the points?
Thank you very much to everyone on the panel. It has been very exciting to listen to the insights that you have shared. Not just exciting, it's reflective for me as a Nigerian. My name is Kassane Adashe. I work with the Cognito Project, and I think I want to start from where you stopped now. the issue of communication and us not speaking with each other as a hindrance to delivering on the quality of work that we have in our minds. It's one thing for us to dream of a better Nigeria. It's another thing for us to put mechanisms in place to achieve it. But those linkages, creating those linkages, those essential linkages, are a huge challenge. I'm just wondering, in terms of stakeholder mapping, because from everything I've heard, I hear us talking about the tech community and innovation hubs within the tech community. Interestingly, there are many other stakeholders that we need to work with if indeed we would want implementation to be as active as we hope it would be. Yes, MDAs are supposed to collaborate with each other, and they're supposed to know what each other is doing so that you are able to create that synergy you need to be able to implement actively. But if that is not working, how do you tell your stories? How do you make other citizens aware of the work you're doing? Because sometimes pressure can come from the people and force organizations who refuse to take responsibility for their own part of the bargain and force them into action, or rather pressure them into action. How well are we doing that? Is your organization as a government institution collaborating with the Ministry of Information, for instance, and saying, this is the headache we have, can you shout about it? How can we get other people involved that are beyond the tech community? Because I am not a member of the tech community technically. I'm a tech mom. I have a kid who is very interested in tech. But my profession is, my background is in media. I'm a storyteller. And I'm curious, I'm hearing a lot of amazing stories coming out from this small room. But then the stories begin and end here. We have a lot of opportunity, and I think it's a low-hanging fruit that we have not previously considered. It's important we do. The low-hanging fruit of collaboration, of collaborating with storytelling projects, people who are interested in spreading the word around, because we care about Nigeria, we care what happens. Nigeria has a huge youth bulge. It's exciting that the tech space is creating employment opportunity for the youth bulge in a way that many other sectors are not. But yes, we have young people who are thriving, young people who want to learn, young people who are showcasing their talents. How well are we telling their stories? How are we capturing it? How are we designing a narrative that actually makes people understand that these young people are not nuisance, that they have stuff to offer, and what they are offering is not bordering on fraud or Yahoo boy or all those dismissive tendencies that we'd like to apply to young people, but that what they do actually matters. So I like the point you raised about people who implement or people who draft policies really understanding what the tech world is about so that they represent the true interests of the community. But I think my major charge and my major encouragement to all of us is, in our stakeholder mapping, we should map our stakeholders way beyond the tech space. I think that is a huge gap. I think that there are many other people that you should bring on board, because tech affects everyone. It's not just about you who builds tech or you who innovates around tech. It's also about the end user and how agile the applications are to respond to the realities that happen in everyday life. So that space, creating those linkages, is very important, and there are low-hanging fruits that we can leverage on to ensure that what we want to achieve.
To help people with zero or no tech skill transition to tech. So to touch on what you said, much more than just being a tech mom, you say you are in the media space. So a lot of people are in tech, but don't know they're in tech. So I'd like to put it to you that you're in tech.
Yeah, in that sense, I agree.
Yes. Yes. So going back to data protection in Nigeria, you've successfully talked about how you are a regulator and all of that, but you haven't said anything about, okay, for instance, I know that about 200,000 people leave the US Army every year, and because I help people transition to tech, I know that, okay, that is a market for me. But you haven't really talked about these data. Is your organization or is your office responsible, directly responsible for sharing data, or you just protect data?
We're solely protecting data and holding parties that are sharing data accountable.
Okay, thank you very much. Then for NIDA, you talked about, okay, sorry, for him, you talked about, sorry sir, I'm not sure I get it. Okay, yes sir, so you talked about support for, support on getting a product to founders, how they can get support on putting their product in the market. How exactly are you doing that? How exactly do you support founders, how exactly do you support startups to put their products in the market? So rather than tell us a vague explanation of how you do that, can you run us through how that would happen from ideation to execution? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My office is not a national office for execution.
Thank you.
We support startups, among other things. Meanwhile, my office doesn't have a laboratory. It doesn't have funds to give to startups or people seeking funds. What we do is to provide support services. So if you come, of course, every case is different. If you come up to us today and tell us you have an invention, you have a product, now, and of course, I definitely want it to get to the market. But between you are having a product here now and market is a very long route.
For you, and you talked about employing people and they have to do their side things. I would like to know if you actually employ, aside employing people around your environment, you employ people in smaller communities, and if you do, what are the challenges and how do you support them? Because I know that people in like Makurdi, we have peculiar challenges that we face. We don't have electricity as much as people in Abuja. We have problems with data and all that. So how do you support them? Or do you just cut them out because they have the challenges, or do you support them? Thank you very much.
I think by data you're referring to broadband penetration.
Yes.
For internet.
Okay. For my company, we have one of our tech our developers that has worked with us for close to 6 years, and he has been to Abuja only once. He's based in Ibadan. Most of my partners don't even know him. They just know his name, if you understand. So we also have a couple of front-end UI developers that are working from Enugu, from Port Harcourt, and the likes. We assist because of our job description. When we give you a job description, you should be able to meet up certain criteria. And that is why we decided to start working by milestones. If we give you, okay, you're supposed to wrap up the UI for this particular project in 2 days, I don't think it's our problem how you wrap it up. But we support you. When it comes to data, there's an allowance for data. We won't buy electricity for you because we don't know where you're staying actually. But we also have our call systems where we support them with call cards, data. So we even send computers to MacBooks too. So actually, what we do is we create that environment where it's very flexible for you to work with us. So we don't care wherever you are, as long as you can deliver on the job, we put you on our platform.
Thank you very much. I think you have answered my question, but it's just also, it's important to also note that all the cities that you have called are actually still big cities compared to smaller towns like Makurdi, Otuko, Lafia, and this just puts it out there. It's important to note that these things that you have talked about, these guys in smaller towns, they have incredible talents, but they have these challenges. And building our own ecosystem, like for me, Makurdi, trying to build a tech ecosystem, there are challenges that I face, and this is one of it. And we have a guy, a UIX guy, he's leaving Makurdi on Sunday, Saturday, tomorrow, next tomorrow, he's going to Lagos. And it's this, he's doing jobs for, you know, companies, he has people that he's working for, and he has been helping us to build our Makurdi tech ecosystem. But because of these challenges and because these organizations are not as patient, he is like, what the hell, I have to move because, you know, I have to look out for myself first. So we have these challenges, and when these kind of opportunities come, we would like for African EU to look at not just these major cities, Port Harcourt, Enugu, there still be, we have towns where the ecosystem is non-existent, where we are still trying to, you know, put tech talents together, to bring them together, to give them direction as to where they should be headed. So this kind of initiatives should also look at these smaller towns and, you know, what we have to offer and how we have to be. Thank you very much.
So the thing is, we create massive awareness so that people would understand what we're doing. For people in Abuja and Lagos, they come as an open door policy. Thank God for tech. We are on Instagram, we are on Twitter, NDPB Nigeria. We follow our activities. All benefits there you will get to meet on the platforms. We're even on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and I think Facebook too. Facebook, and also we have a website, we have a hotline. You can call us anytime, obviously working hours. You can call within the working hours and someone will definitely answer. All the benefits you can access Nigerian Data Protection Bureau are clearly stated. We're also working with, I think there was a group that came in early after the bill was created. We're working with them to go nationwide to create awareness on, so that data subjects will know what their data is. Because okay, we are saying data controllers. What of the data subjects who's actually at risk here? I mean, they're the ones that actually need to know where to give their data, how to give it, and also know that I have this kind of rights that I can access. And so we have that. Anytime you can reach us on Twitter, Facebook, like NDPB Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I'm going to, this is going to address some of the things that you brought up, but I would also like to encourage us, we have a lot of work to do even as Digital Innovation Hub managers in terms of, so you asked about if we had a presence, and she just mentioned that you can find them online, and I know that most of these agencies also have like license offices in other smaller states because not everybody can come into Abuja or Lagos where they're headquartered in. And so if you go through, I don't know if you were here earlier and when I gave a summary of some of the things provisions made in the Nigerian Startup Act, I think that it's important that we equip ourselves. So yes, it says the Nigerian Startup Act. You have a responsibility as a manager to know what the act says so that you know how to help your startups access the provisions that have been made. If you go through the act, you'd see some of the agencies that you need to be aligned with as a startup, and you can also help them make informed decisions.
Thank you, Hannah. So I was going to answer the question or your comment as to African EU should try to look at grassroots, smaller communities other than Lagos, Abuja, and the rest of them. So actually, ECA is based in Akure, in Ondo State. African EU is actually very, very particular about grassroots. Now, one of the reasons why it looks like it came to Abuja is, as much as possible, all the workshops and activities that were supposed to run were supposed to actually happen in Akure. But because, it's easier for you to travel to Abuja than for you to come to Akure. So we tried as much as possible. We're representing Nigeria, So we tried as much as possible to try to go to different locations that is closer to other smaller communities. For example, we went to Lagos. Now, Lagos, someone from Ibadan, someone from Osun, can show up in Lagos. Now, I remember when we had the workshop in Akure, there was someone from Akungba, and the rest of smaller communities around Akure showed up. Now we're in Abuja, you came from Makurdi, you're here. We're going to Benin next week. Other persons around that region would also definitely show up. So African EU was actually particularly strategic about grassroots. But again, we also had to, sit down and map out how do we ensure that we reach as many persons as we can in all the ways that we can. Again, this is a hybrid event, right? Most of the events that we've had, they've been hybrid. So just in the case you are not able to show up physically, you can actually join virtually. And technology, you can ask questions. The speakers here, they all have LinkedIn profile. You can actually connect without necessarily showing up. So yes, I do buy the idea that more international organizations and development agencies should look towards, should look inwards and look at smaller communities and grassroots. But I think it's also important that we're able to identify those who are already doing it. I had a conversation with Adriano before the meeting started, and we talked about how we can do more collaborative programs, that actually can touch grassroots. So yes, eventually, like she said, Rome was not built in a day. So eventually, I'm sure that we'll get there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, we have one more question. Just have a question. Okay, so before we take that question, do we have participants online who would like to ask a question? So you're going to take the final question and we can wrap up for this.
Thank you very much. Okay, so my question is actually to you.
Can you introduce yourself?
Okay, my name is Theophilus. I'm founder of Next Finance. I came a little bit late for this session, for this program. So I wanted to know if the issue of intellectual property was actually being covered, right? Because I've noticed that navigating through the landscape of intellectual property in Nigeria can be a hassle, especially for early stage founders. I mean, I've been privileged to register the IP of different startup founders, and I find that the process of registering this IP is actually very, very extensive. It's actually so long, and you have to, get yourself caught up in the web of, settling, some players, for example, the Ministry of Trade and Investment, the trademark registry, and all of that. So I wanted to know if, the issue of IP was being covered and if this problem is being solved in any way.
So I think when we're speaking about the Nigerian Startup Act, we're talking of some of the provisions that have been made. That was mentioned, it was touched on a bit. The Data Protection Bureau, they have a role to play in that also. Yes. So they're protecting intellectual property, data, and all that information. Okay, so we have Dr. Ephraim wants to also.
When you create on invest on writing, develop software, anything, it belongs to you, right? It's your responsibility to protect it. There are processes to protect it. There are agencies that take care of that. And protection, unfortunately, is expensive. Not only in Nigeria, everywhere in the world. In fact, my office assists some people who can't do, especially individual members, to protect their inventions. Apart from the technical input we make, we pay the fees at the Patents and Trademark Registry that are due on those inventions. Sometimes people come to us, if we assess them and think they can do that, they can pay the fees, we refuse to pay it for them. It's only those who we think can pay that we assist. So it's everywhere. But day before yesterday, the minister just wanted something from the office. Says we will assist people to register their agents in Nigeria. Can you also do that for outside the country, assist vendors protect their invention outside the country? It's a very simple thing. The whole budget we used to assist maybe 10, 20, 30 vendors here in Nigeria cannot assist to patent one invention outside this country. So we can't do that because we don't have the auditors have resources to do it. So if you have an invention and software or whatever you want to protect, you have to understand it's your responsibility But you can start around if there are agencies that can do it for you, because it's not going to be immediate. It's just like registering a business name at the ACs. You have to pay for it. That's about sentiment, protecting your information.
Thank you very much. I think this has been an amazing panel. But before we wrap up, I'd like to take final words from our panelists. I'll start with you.
Thank you very much. So final words is an ecosystem. All of us are players, from the startups, from accelerators, from policymakers, academia, and we all have to just collaborate and work together. For startups, you have to keep on innovating, of course, connect as well. People matter in building your business. So rather than just focusing on the technical aspects, you also have to focus on the business aspect. And that's where you have to connect with people that can help you to make your dreams a reality. So those are my last words. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, mine is that you are the players in the field. You know where you want government support. But you also need to reach out to government and know how they can support you. We can advise the government how they can support you. Because people all need to work together. So try to collaborate with government. Sometimes if you think this is the best way government can support the sector, you can advise government. There are ways with my agency. I told you what you can recommend that this is the best way to support so that our intervention can be impactful. So we do that. That is how development comes. Because if we just sit here, you sit here, we think we build the support structures to help you, and you are not seeing the impact, then that means what you are doing is not impactful. So also reach out to necessary government agencies and also policies to recommend us or advise how government intervention is undertaken so that the intended project can actually receive the support.
Well, I would like to say for the startups, we should actually take human individuals into consideration. Always consider the interest of information of individuals while you're doing what you're doing, because you need to protect that data you are collecting, because you interface with a lot of data daily and you need to protect it so that we don't come after you and you say government is doing this, government is doing that. So please, and as he said, rightly said, we should work together. NDPB has an open door policy. We are on Instagram, we are on Twitter, we are on Facebook, we are on LinkedIn, NDPB Nigeria. Follow us. We also have a website, our hotline is there. Call us anytime within the working days. We are very accessible. Thank you very much.
My fellow panelists have said virtually everything for us. But one thing I would say is, they say idea rules the world. However, implemented ideas are actually the one that rules the world. So I would advise we keep pushing, start something, keep thinking. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So after this group picture, we'll take a collective group picture.